It's Happy Gilmore time. The Badgers do not win that game without Carter Gilmore. We got to talk about it. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Badger fans? Not the prettiest game, but the Badgers come away with the win. This is the Northwestern Wisconsin Reaction Show, Locked On Badgers. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. That is Rajiv over there. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, coming to you every single day. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your purchase. Again, not the prettiest, but
this is awesome.
It's still
Good
a
day
win.
for me. Come on in here, buddy. Get up on that line.
Okay, let's start here. Again, every show we do the good, the mid, the ugly. I like this because it kind of balances out all the takes a little bit. We always flip-flop who goes first and whatnot, so I'll take this one first. The good is just winning a game on the road. I had this written down as a good even before. I know there's other individual performances to get into. You're not going to play pretty all the time on the road. Should that excuse the complete first half? No. N-O. But you won a game on the road. We talk about this all the time. Big Ten road games are hard. They're difficult. This was not the prettiest effort from the Badgers. It is not an A-plus effort by any stretch. But we talked about this before too, Rajiv. There is a skill in winning. There is a skill in finding a way to win ugly games. I thought the second half they came out in the first 4 minutes, I put it in the Discord. This offense looks much better. They've adjusted. Now can they just survive? Can they survive a subpar effort on the road? And they did. And that's a W. And at the end of the day, nobody's going to look back in a month and a half and be upset that you played a bad first half at Northwestern. So big picture, that's my good.
Totally agree. Grinding out a victory is what I wrote. I just feel like, after that first half, which we'll certainly get into, I mean, good teams do this kind of stuff. Good teams will come out and, let's say, like, look at last year's Wisconsin team. That's not a win, not even close. Like that's a game that you just grind out. You try to you get a little close in the second half. You just keep fumbling over things. This team really pulled it together and did exactly what they need to do. And I'm going to save Carter Gilmore for another segment, but I'm going to talk about John Tonje right now with the good as well. I'm like, my God, that guy is a flat killer. And between the two of them, John Blackwell and Tonje, one of them has to have like an exceptional game because they seem to never both play well at the same time. But Tonje today, like some of those shots weren't even good shots. Those were incredibly tough shots. He should have missed so many of those threes, but he didn't. He went 5 of 11 from 3, 8 of 18 from the field. Super efficient again. Like he's just one of those guys that it doesn't always look pretty. Some of his drives, like, I'm just like, can he get to the hoop? Can he beat his guy? Like, what's going on? He's a little bit helter-skelter at times. But man, the guy just keeps us in games. And when we had what the worst half I've ever seen us play in this season, which I'll get into again, John Tonje, what an incredible performance. And we need a guy to make those kinds of plays, to be aggressive in the right moment, to know when to not be aggressive. But the bottom line is, Ryan, the dude just makes shots that no one else makes.
Yeah, Timothy Palm, Tonje's Badger basketball Jesus. Timothy Palm's always in the chat, good dude. Yeah, nothing to add there. I'm going to get into Tonje later, so I don't want to use all my Tonje bullets here, but very well said, to the point where he just kind of carries the team and he just makes those shots that you need in those clutch moments. Let me hit you up with your mid. What's your mid?
Yeah, it's Nolan Winter's kind of overall weird performance. Like there are some moments, man, where I am so happy with Nolan Winter. There was a stretch in the second half where, he made I called it like an athletic 3. Like the way he caught the ball, he just kind of quickly fired it up there. Very quick release, very John Tonje-like release. He just stepped right in, nailed a 3, went back on the other end, didn't get an obvious rebound that he could have got, came down, and as you put in the Discord, got to put his guy on skates. Just a beautiful drive in, got the bucket, got fouled. And I'm like, that is the Nolan Winter that I need to see. There were some 3s that he hit tonight. But then there are the moments where defensively he looks like he's lost. He's fumbling rebounds. He gets a ball low to his feet. He can't corral it. Like there are just times where I'm like, man, you could be really, really good. And I still believe you're going to be really, really good. But those moments where I just don't understand, it's Jekyll and Hyde. It's one play you get this winter, one play you got that winter. So for me, that's literally the definition of a mid. And I just think it was another mid game for him. So much upside if he could just clean up the way he's playing.
It just needs to be consistent, right? Like we talk about this all the time. But keep in mind too, we're talking about a true sophomore who put on a lot of weight this offseason. He's kind of getting used to a new offense, a new position to some degree. Like a lot of people thought he'd be a 5, now he's a 4. Like there's some growing stuff there that you can see. But he has that stretch, and then 2 plays after that stretch, he fumbles the ball out of bounds on what should have just been a layup, right? And then offensively, there was a stretch, or defensively, there was a stretch of about 4 minutes where Northwestern was just pounding us on the glass. And Winter's out there, and that's where you got to get tougher. You just got to go in there and help Crowell. My mids are combined. It's the bigs. I thought Crowell and Winter as a group today weren't as impactful. Crowell hit that big 3 towards the end, but up until that point, I thought it was pretty silent. I thought he struggled a little bit. I thought both of them struggled against the doubles today. Winter doesn't have as much experience there, but he threw it out of bounds on one of them. Crowell, uncharacteristically to me, felt like he didn't have a great feel for it. There was one play that doubled him, and then he was low baseline and he pivoted to the baseline off a double. You can't do that. You're just going to get pinned down there, which he did, then threw it away. He's too veteran to make those kind of footwork type mistakes. Northwestern doubled him and won that battle. We always talk about schematic battles, right? Do we win the battle when they double our bigs, or do they? I think today they won that battle. And Crowell and Winter need to be better in those spots.
Yeah, I totally agree. The bad for me, are we moving to the bad? Are we ready to go bad?
Let's do bad.
So the bad for me, that first half, man, holy cow. I was furious at halftime. That was literally the worst half of basketball I've seen us play all season. It's not even close. We looked like we fell asleep. We looked like we never even showed up at the arena. We didn't get off the bus. I don't know what happened, but everybody, we turned the ball over 9 times in the first half. Like, how many times have we come on here and talked about, turning it over on the first possession? Well, we didn't do that. We just missed 3 straight shots. And then we started turning the ball over. Everyone just looked like they were completely unfocused. Certainly the double teams that you mentioned with the bigs, we were getting caught in some of those. They just Collins just had us. He had Gard in that first half. He was more prepared. We give Gard a lot of credit on this show for a lot of things right now and everything that's happened with this offense. But that first half, I put that on Greg Gard. That was really poor performance, in my opinion, in preparation for the game. Now, he made the halftime adjustments, but some of those adjustments could have been made in the timeouts too. Like, you could have had a better half. And if we were playing a better team, we would have been down by 30 in the first half. Northwestern did everything they could to try to keep us in there. I think that first half was just really, really bad. And I put on the Discord, I was very angry. I don't think I've ever been as angry watching this basketball team, because I'm like, we're better than this. We turned the ball over 9 times. We made stupid plays. We were throwing it off each other's feet. We were throwing it out of bounds. We weren't blocking anybody out. We were tipping. I mean, it was just, I don't ever want to see that from a Wisconsin team again. I know that happens, especially on the road, but that to me was a level of totally just unacceptable that doesn't need to happen. Kudos to them for getting it right in the second half, but my bad is absolutely that first half. Horrific half of basketball.
Yeah, that's like a D- half for sure. The only bright spot is Tonje probably keeping us alive and afloat there. So I know you said you put it all on Gard, and we went back and forth a little bit on the Discord here. I always think it's kind of both. Especially with the veteran team, like, Greg Gard is not telling his guys, hey, dribble in and pivot the wrong way. Like, there are just some real fundamental mistakes that veteran players can't make. Now, is some of that on Gard for not getting the team ready? I guess. But I would say, again, if you're a veteran team and you're reliant on a coach for getting you up for a road game, Tonje's too veteran to do that, right? Blackwell's played enough ball at this point. Crowell has played enough ball. McGee's played enough ball. And they were just throwing the ball at people's feet. Like, they were just making silly, uncharacteristic plays at times. And to me, that's not on Gard. That's on veterans needing to show the hell up and play harder. I felt like they saw Northwestern's limited. They're down a guy. They're 3-7 in conference. And it felt like they didn't play as hard as they should have. And to me, that's more on players. It's not as much on coaches. I would say there were some adjustments. The one thing I would put on Gard, and I said this in the Discord too, it felt like Northwestern took us out of our offense really quickly. They did what JMU did to some degree. Let's pressure. Let's extend pressure. Let's jack up your offensive flow, because we're trying to do a lot of side-to-side pick and roll. Those DHOs, those pick and roll actions were getting blown up. And I thought offensively we could have made quicker adjustments to counter that. That's what I put on Gard. The effort I don't put on Gard. I really put that more on the players.
That's fair. That's a very fair take. And that's what I was going to push back on, was like, and really a good question for you as someone who's been like in this field. What kind of adjustments really can you make in those media timeouts? Like, how much can you really do differently on the fly there versus in the locker room at halftime? Like, I'm actually asking, what are some, like, do you think that, like, there clearly just could have been some things, and you mentioned it, like, the adjustments could have been made, but is it easy to make those adjustments in those short timeouts to actually to change the trajectory of the half?
Yeah, I think a little bit. Like, and again, that's where I put some criticism on Gard for not doing some of that. But here's where, if people are upset about the players not playing hard enough and you expect Gard to change that effort level in the timeout, well, then you're not making adjustments. If you have to yell at the players to stop turning the ball over, play harder, rotate, Well, then that 30-minute timeout, 30-second timeout is not based on adjustments, right? So that's what's on the players. Play harder so the coach doesn't have to worry about that. Offensively, if a team is going to push you out, they're going to play extend the pressure. They're going to swarm the ball. They're going to hedge on the pick and roll. So instead of doing our motion offense side-to-side pick and roll, then you're going to swing the ball to one of your, I said this in Discord, get the ball to Tonje, just let him cook a little bit. They did that, right? And that worked in the first half at points where you're not letting them double up on the ball because you're just going to get in your playmaker's side on a side of the ball where you put everybody on the other side. Or you do back cuts. They're overplaying the ball. We saw that a little bit too, right? Pass fake back cut. It's simpler actions like that where you got to swing the ball quickly, be more decisive. So swing the ball quickly, run a post-to-post screen, get a quick post touch. It's things you got to be more decisive and quick if they're blowing up your actions. And some of that is where you got to let your playmakers make plays. And we saw they went to that in the stretch of the first half where Tonje started taking over. They would just kind of isolate him on the side, single side pick and roll, and let Tonje cook. And I think they could have done those things quicker because our flow, our motion offense wasn't working.
Yeah. No, definitely. What was you had a bad too. Did you say you're bad?
Oh, my bad was Blackwell.
Yeah. We should get the bad out right now because the rest of the show has to be good.
So listen, everything you said about the first half is correct in terms of like, that's a terrible first half, a terrible, terrible first half. Blackwell for the second first half in a row. If you're going to be one of the two alphas on this team, you cannot play that poorly. And I love JB. Like I love Blackwell. I've talked about it, but if you're going to be a dude that we give a ton of praise to when you play really well, that stretch he had where he settled for like a fadeaway mid-range shot. And then he had a turnover, like they got the offensive rebound, they kicked to him. He had a turnover that got kicked into half court where he just didn't hustle enough to get the ball back. And then he committed a foul. That's one of the worst stretches of basketball Blackwell will ever put on film. Absolutely inexcusable. And then he sits the rest of the half because he picked up his second foul. You can't be one of the stars on this team and play a game like that in the first half on the road, period.
I know we're up against a break, but I'll just say about Blackwell, honestly, like, and look, we saw the kind of game that Tonje had at USC, right? It would be great if they could just both play well at the same time. That seems to be a theme that's happening right now. But I will say, like, I believe in Blackwell. I know there's a lot of people like, well, Blackwell is he regressing? No, like he's in a bad stretch. The things that Blackwell does for us is so critical. Like he's an important part of this team. And if he's not playing well, we're not going anywhere in the conference. We're not going anywhere in March. So I hope he can settle in and learn from this because it's a learning experience. He's still a sophomore and definitely improvements have to be made. But yeah, he's in my bad as well.
And people kind of on both sides of the guard are where some of that blame for the first half. Greg Linscomb, I disagree with Rajiv for blaming guard. I liked him for not exploding, being patient with a veteran team. Dominic says, I think guard needs to prepare them better. I think there's truth on both sides of that spectrum. Yeah. I really do. We do need to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about that dude. We're going to talk about Carter Gilmore and what in the holy heck did we just witness? That's coming up next. Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick second for our friends of the show over at Gametime. Gametime is the ultimate source for all your sports. If you need any type of sports tickets and you need entertainment tickets, you have to go check out Gametime. You have to go see what they have there. And Rajiv, you ever been to a Broadway show?
I have several.
I have too. You can get those tickets on Gametime. By the way, if you haven't, and I am far from the most cultured person, but getting to a Broadway show is incredible. If you're able to do it, you can find those tickets on Gametime, concerts, theater, sporting events, great inventory of seats, of prices. You can get tickets right at the very end if you're a late minute planner like I am. Like we have this meetup coming up in for the Oregon game. If I had to make late minute tickets, which I didn't, but I would do those on Gametime as well. Snag the tickets without the stress over at Gametime. Download the app, create the account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create the account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. All right, let's jump back into this. Let's talk a little Carter Gilmore. I think that's definitely the next thing we need to get to. I want to throw this comment up here. This is from Joel Dobbs. And, I don't want to pick on you, but he said, Greg Gard never makes players better, especially the bigs. Well, let's talk about Carter Gilmore, Rajiv.
Oh, my gosh. God, the Carter Gilmore. I mean, let's just quickly review the stat line here. 5 of 7 from the field, 3 of 5 from 3, 2 of 2 from the free throw line. He had 7 rebounds, 1 assist, and 15 points. I mean, from the jump, from the very beginning of the season until now, all we've seen is this man just work his butt off like he has done, by the way, his entire career. Last year, it was he always works hard, but he isn't that good. This year, boy, I mean, he talk about a step, like everything that man does. He's so focused. He has got a good awareness. He's a veteran. He plays like with such poise out there, and he plays like he knows he's better than you. Like he's like, all right, I was really good in high school, and then I kind of came here and it didn't work out. Now he's playing with that confidence. The 3-point shot. I mean, guys, remember last year when you could stand on the 3-point line and no one would stand within 10 feet of him? Like, of course, Carter Gilmore's not taking it. Now you see guys closing out and fouling him. I mean, like, it's wild. He plays with such energy. Kudos to Carter Gilmore. I am so proud of him. I'm so happy for him. And you love to see this from a guy. You've said this before. He's a guy you want to root for. He's so likable. And the way that he's played this year, the effort that he's put in, this is exactly what he deserves, was to have a performance where without him, we don't win. And every single game this year, we've talked about him being good, but it hasn't been like an amazing game until now. And you watch him kick on and keep doing this, like Carter Gilmore, what a player. He is my absolute player of the game and one of the best performances I've seen a Badger have, and honestly, all season in a long time. Like, that's the kind of effort. If we got that kind of effort from our entire team every game, we'd go to the Final Four.
Yeah, that's a great set. That's a great last point. The effort is something. Effort's a skill. Like people always think, well, players just need to play harder. You know how you play harder? You spend your life grinding. Like, that is a skill that's built up over time. It's not a switch you flip. I'm sorry, it's not. I've been around enough people. I've seen it professionally, sports and not, right? How many people do you work with where you wish, why doesn't he just work harder? That's a skill. Showing up is a freaking skill in this world. Carter Gilmore always shows up. A couple comments here. I'm Baked says Carter Gilmore is a legend. Greg Lincecum, for those of you who wanted to move Carter Gilmore to the scout team last year, I think an apology is in order. Listen, I've been wrong on the Carter Gilmore takes.
We all have it. And kudos to him for changing that. Yeah. He was the one who changed that. Like, he went out there. I mean, it's not like these guys don't know what's being said about them and read what's out there. Like, they know, and they know how they play. Like, kudos to that man for just turning everything around.
O-Train, what kind of dark magic was Carter Gilmore playing with in the locker room? Alex says Gilmore may just be Stephen Curry. What a gosh. Here's what I'd say with Gilmore. He's not my player of the game. It's Tonje. It's Tonje. Just because as magical as what Carter Gilmore just did, we are out of that game in the first half, if not for Tonje. Tonje's shot making is incredible. 27 points, 5-11 from 3. He's my player of the game, but the story's Gilmore. Like, Tonje's the player of the game, but the story's Gilmore. Because in that second half, where we needed to create some separation, where we needed to catch back up, he was hitting in rhythm, in offense, tough shots. These were not, Trent Brown, effort is a skill, amazing point. It is an amazing point.
Yeah, it was.
But so many people just think it's not a skill. Like, it's a skill. But anyway, the shots Carter Gilmore hit in that second half, they were not swing, wide open. I have a couple seconds to step it up. It was catch in rhythm, reposition. Those are shooter shots. He is hitting shooter shots at this point. He is not hitting, I'm sitting in the YMCA by myself open and I can hit a few threes at that point. The dude is a shooter. Like, it's incredible that we are talking about this based on what we were saying a couple years ago, where he just couldn't shoot. And that wasn't a false narrative. That wasn't fans like, oh, how could you have that take now? No, that was a true narrative. He has turned himself into a shooter. Hats off to him. Kudos to him. That is how you grind. That is how you stay with a program. That is how you develop guys. Kudos to Gard. Kudos to Penny. Kudos to him. It's a great story, man. He's the easiest guy in the world to root for, and I love it.
Well said. Another one I'm going to put up here. Greg Lincecum says Carter Gilmore is the Kamari McGee of the bigs. I mean, you talk about those two guys and the effort they put in and how hard they work and how much we've talked about them. Like, our bench is all of a sudden really strong with a guy like that. I mean, Carter Gilmore, look, you bring in Carter Gilmore after the 5 minutes in the game, 2-3 minutes in the game last year. We're like, oh man, what is he doing? And now I'm like, let's go, bring him on. Like, how many times did he? Let's talk about his rebounding too. Like, it's the blocking out. Like, he was the one guy who was making actual athletic plays to try to get the rebound. He was actually moving towards the ball. Like, he was really aware of what was happening down low. I mean, we've seen our big struggle. Nolan Winter struggled today on rebounds. Carter Gilmore doesn't. Like, he just gets it done. He works harder than the next guy, and he deserves all the praise in the world, man. What a great game. I mean, I don't think Carter Gilmore has ever actually like got me to jump out of my chair and scream at the TV, but he did today.
I did put up a clip early in the year. It was from one of the scrimmage games on Twitter from a Carter Gilmore pass. And I think the tweet was, he's got a lot of skill in some areas. If he could only shoot the ball. This was before this year. Right. And now we're seeing that. It's just so much fun. Will Hyana says, disagree, Ryan, because Tonje's performance was not a surprise. Gilly's was. Yep. If anybody wants to have Gilmore on the player of the game, I would have no argument whatsoever for that. JB says he was always a shooter. Gard didn't give him the green light. I said it 2 years ago. He's a career 22% three-point shooter, JB. Like that's the number. And that's with this year's tick up. So before this year, he was like a career 20% three-point shooter. That's just not true. Like he wasn't always a shooter, and he's improved. I mean, you could argue maybe with more reps, you get more opportunities, but you don't get more reps unless you shoot better than 20%.
I would love.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I would love to see like a Big Ten network special, like, you know, like one of the things they journal or whatever they did, Journey or whatever they do, like following this, like interviewing Carter Gilmore and talking about this season. And like, I hope they did something. I wish they did something. Like, think about the effort he must have put in the off season, like just focusing on his shot, really gaining his confidence. Like, man, he's just playing like a different player. It's almost like we got a new recruit out of this. Like all of a sudden we got another guy on our team that we weren't expecting to be there.
No, that's a great point. It's almost how many times have we talked about it on the football side, the walk-ons, right? And the Barry Alvarez called them the erasers, right? The guys that make up for recruiting misses. This is that on the basketball side, right? This is a Carter Gilmore that is making up for some recruiting misses. And as JK said, the bench is the glue on this team. And I want to talk about that next. This is just a continuation of a point we've made all season where it's the versatility and the depth of this team more so than the top one or two players that makes us dangerous. Because if you're a Northwestern fan, Rajiv, what are you throwing against the wall when Carter Gilmore starts going nuclear against you? I mean, seriously.
I mean, it's just like we've been on the other side of that before, so like I know how I would have felt. Like, are you kidding me? Is this guy just really going to go off? But yeah, I mean, it sucks to be you.
All right, let's take a quick break. Come back. We'll talk a little bit more about the depth in this team, and we'll pull up a bunch more of your comments. Today's Locked On Badgers. Just a quick break here, friends of the show, and then we're coming right back. All right, Rajiv, let's come back into this. I do want to hit on this again because I really think the hidden sauce of this team. We talked about Blackwell not playing well enough, but the team survived it and won. Right? I think it's the depth. I think it's the versatility on any given night at this point. Would it surprise you now going forward if Gilmore has a good game, or if McGee or Crowell or Winter or even Klesmit had some moments today, or Tonje, Blackwell? It's just a deep team, man.
It's funny because last year we were literally talking about how we didn't have depth because of Carter Gilmore, and now we have depth because of Carter Gilmore. Right? It's really interesting. No, totally. These guys have been performing all year. Even Xavier Amos had a couple like athletic, good like effort plays tonight, which I liked. Janicki didn't have the best game, but listen, McGee and Gilmore have really like those were our two guys. We thought it was like, you know, Cam Hunter, maybe Free Tag was going to be the guys that were coming off the bench, not McGee and Gilmore, and they've been incredible, absolutely amazing performances by all of them all year. And it's the reason that you see a difference looking at last year's team and this year's team when you look ahead to March, when you look ahead to the February. This was the game that last year's team, like I said, lost, right? And if we don't have that February sort of swoon that people are talking about, if we don't have, you know, the March first round exit, like it's because of this. It's because we've got John Tonje doing John Tonje things, and because we've got a bench of actual productive players who really, truly can be interchanged with the starters at any point and be totally fine.
A couple questions here I want to get into. I think these are good. Bo Dragon says, I think they're better with Crowell on the bench, just playing Winter and Gilmore. What are your thoughts here, Rajiv?
I disagree. I think Crowell still brings a lot offensively when he's not double teamed. Like, we don't see Winter doing enough of that, which we need to. We don't really see Carter Gilmore doing much of that back to the basket either. So you need Crowell. You need someone who's going to play back to the basket.
I think it's matchup dependent somewhat for sure. Like if you're playing a bigger team, you have to have Crowell on the court more because Winters just isn't quite physical enough yet. In spurts, sure, I get this. You're a little quicker. You're a little more a little faster defensively. But Crowell just gives you things that Winter doesn't. I don't think there's a big rotation change there that you need. I think it's a good question, too, from Buster Bluth. Great fictional character, by the way. Tonje had a great game, but I worry about how I feel. I worry that I feel Blackwell and Tonje haven't fully meshed yet. And Rajiv, you hit on something like this earlier. It's hard. They don't always seem to go off together.
It is a fair point, and it's something to really think about, like, and just keep our eyes on at this point, like, because they both do a lot of the same things. They both want the ball, they want to take over games, but then they get in each other's way at times. It is really strange, but boy, imagine if they could just both do that at the same time. How lethal could we actually be? But I think it's something to keep our eye on. We're gonna have we have a really tough stretch coming up now. Really tough stretch: Indiana, Iowa, then we've got Purdue, Illinois, Oregon. So we're going to learn a lot more about how this team's ability to play in tough situations soon. And this is part of that, right? Can these two play together and be effective as a pairing?
And this is, I think it's a really good question. This is something I talked about earlier in the year where and Rajiv, you just hit on it too, where I think what they do on the court is a little duplicative. They have a similar overlapping skill set, and they're both kind of, when they have the ball, they're high usage guys. They're not true point guards where they're driving and collapsing, kicking and cutting and driving again. So because of that, it's hard for them to always coexist. I think ideally what you're going to do is you're going to completely stagger their minutes. So there's always one of them running the main part of the offense at all points of the court, right? You never have both of them on the bench. And then when they're on there together, I almost wonder if you could do a little, they haven't really done much of this. If you have Blackwell and Tonje working together in the pick and roll, like to have Tonje single-sided, have those two on one side, then you might be able to get them both in the action where it's a lot harder for the defense to kind of just hard hedge one off the pick and roll. That's more of an NBA thing where they'll put their two top guards and pick and rolls together and try to create a little more chaos using their best two players on the same side of the court. So I would like to see maybe more of that. But again, it's hard in the middle of the season to put new stuff in. Practice time is limited and it is what it is. I think it's a good point.
Yeah. We've got a few comments I wanted to bring up. We haven't talked about Klesmit yet. Let's talk about him for a minute. What was your take on Klesmit's performance today? I kind of have an I thought it was a bit better than maybe other people thought. What did you think?
I was kind of fine with it. I thought I like seeing him get in the paint. That's something you've talked about a lot. I like seeing him get in the paint under control, but there was a couple nice drives there. Really nice baseline drive in the second half where I thought he got fouled, which I think put us back in the lead. It was still not great though. Like it feels like we're still searching for the better version of Klesmit, which we haven't gotten. There's still a couple shots. He took one in the second half from I think it was the left or right corner with 6 or 7 seconds left on a shot clock, which was just a horrific shot. There was no need for it. There was no reason for it. The game was still, the game wasn't over. And it's those shots, man, he's got to clean up. It's the low efficiency shots that he has to clean up. But outside of that, I would call it like a C+ game for him.
Yeah, I think that the way I look at his game is today it was an effort. Like he was really he's trying to turn things around. You can just tell. I just felt like I liked the way he was playing. He found different ways to get into the game, like the drive. I thought after that he hit a 3 very quickly thereafter, and I'm like, okay, this is what he needs because he always needs to see the ball go through the hoop. You take away some of those bad shots, and then I think it was an okay game. He went 1 of 4. Once again, he's under 30% from the three-point line, which this continues. He's going to be shooting under 30 for the whole year, which is nuts to think that would actually happen. But I appreciate that he is working hard to get himself out of it. And I feel like I can see that the way that he's playing. He's doing different things. He's not quickly settling for shots. He's trying to create other guys. He's trying to find assists. Like he had a couple good rebounds today. I think that I'm okay with it. I think with what we're seeing at Gilmore and McGee and some of the other players, it seems like someone is always hitting every night. So that puts us in a pretty good situation. I do still think a nuclear game is coming from him because you can see that it's still there. But I appreciate what he's doing, and I had no real major issue with his performance tonight, except that one horrific shot.
You hear Bardo on the call when Klesmit hit his shot on the wing. He said, the sharpshooter gets it. And here's what I wanted to take from that. Coaches are not like fans. Like we are fans, right? We live and die on shots. Coaches look at the overall body of work. And again, I keep saying this. I'm going to keep beating this dead horse. They still close out on Klesmit. Coaches still worry about him taking shots. So I'm not that stressed about it. If he can cut down on a few of the bad shots, I would call them the low efficiency shots because he still creates gravity. You mentioned the rebounds. He had 7 the other day. Like, I think he's been playing very hard. He's been cleaning up the defensive glass. He is one of the better passers on the team. Defensively, we've seen him blow up a lot of action lately. Drew 2 offensive fouls in the last 2 or 3 games, just blowing up the pick and roll action from opposing teams. So there's a lot of these little things he still gives you that I think are really important. And listen, today wasn't a great McGee day. He had that 3-point play or that end one kind of in the paint, but there are games you need a bigger, more physical guard, and that is Klesmit.
Yeah, I mean, 11 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. That's a fine day from a guy that, I mean, it's right at his average. He's averaging 10.2 points a game, I think. So he's right there at his average.
Yep, played hard defensively, as Randy said. Yeah, I think he was fine today. Like I said, C+, if you want to say B-. I think he's in that range today. It's just, I think what it is with Klesmit too is this year has felt more like the ceiling for him. And I know you said you think the nuclear game is still coming. We're still waiting on the better version that we've seen, and that's where 11 points is great. But where's the 22-point outburst that we've seen him do? And maybe that's just not going to be this year for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think what we're honestly going to see is a lot of games like this, right? Where he scores, 8 to 10 points and maybe he makes a 3, he shoots 4 and makes 1. That's pretty typical, I feel like, at this point. And And we're not going to see that consistently better version of him, but we are going to see one game where he just blows up and makes 8 threes or something like that. And we're going to use that to propel us and hopefully win a tournament game with it.
Yeah. Michael says, what did Amos do well today? I don't see all the love he gets from Rajiv. Rajiv, a big.
Listen, I think first of all, with Amos, like I'm sorry, I had the stats up and now it's gone. But I think that he has a skill and he has traits that other guys don't have. He's kind of that stretch 4 that can athletically guard some of the other players that we have. I don't have his stats in front of me. I don't know what he did today, but when I watched the game in general, I just felt like he makes good hustle plays. Like he's trying to get into the game as much as he can out there. I agree. It's not amazing. He didn't really do anything offensively, but I just think the more he can frustrate some athletic force on other teams and be a change of pace for us defensively, when you compare that to Winter or Crowell, it's something that we need on the team, that if he comes out there and just gives good effort, especially defensively and maybe some athletic rebounds, like that's all we really need from him. We don't need him to be a major scorer, especially when you got Carter Gilmore dropping points out there too. I am okay with Amos. I like his effort. I want him to be better, but I still feel like there are small increments of growth that we're seeing from him.
And I just pulled it up here because I didn't have my stats up either. I think we both closed them out randomly at the same time. Amos, 7 minutes, 0 points, 1 rebound. I will say this there, and I put this in the Discord too. There was a play where he had a tremendous defensive one-on-one possession. Him on ball is pretty good. His on-ball defense is pretty good. It's off ball where the awareness tends to be a bit of an issue with Amos. But if you put him on ball and say just stay in front of that guy, he's probably our best front court guy at doing that. To your point, and that's a valuable skill set. I want to. Go ahead. You got a comment?
No. Go ahead.
I wanted to kind of just wrap up here a little bit, but any other things, little things, good or bad, throughout the game that stuck out to you that we didn't hit?
No, I think we pretty much touched on all the stuff with the game. I just want to touch on the conference real quick. I mean, we're basically tied for 4th right now. And again, I think it's still a road win. We haven't talked too much about that specifically today, but I mean, we're 3-3 on the road. And I've always said, you win your games at home, you split on the road, you're doing your thing. We're 4-1 at home. We're now 3-3 on the road. That's great. We've got a lot of tough road games coming up, but that's a huge one. Now we've got a home game against Indiana, a team that took Purdue to the brink last night. They've got really, really good players. So, I mean, I'm excited about where this team can go. And I think this is sort of that first tick mark of this is definitely something that would not have happened last year. We saw the February slump last year, and we didn't let that happen today. And I think there's some fight in this team that is still, there's a lot left to be desired still. And I'm still excited about where this season can go, despite being incredibly frustrated with that first half.
Yeah, I think what we need to keep sight of is we know this isn't a perfect team, so let's not expect perfection at all times. Like there's going to be a couple bad first halves. And like I said, I like the fight coming out of the second half. Like you said, I agree. We would have lost this game last year, but we're still going to lose games coming up. And people need to realize that this is not a perfect team. This is a team missing a point guard and missing a few other things. It is what it is, right? It's an imperfect team. It's a good team. It's not an amazing, great team. A couple things here from people. Dominic, I agree. Amos has a unique body. A-Bug, Amos lost his man multiple times leading to threes. That's that off-ball awareness. That's where he struggles. It's getting screened backside and weak side and not seeing it coming. Dominic also says athletic. P says Amos has so much potential. Angelo says Gilmore better than Amos on defense. Yes, until you have to guard a 6'11 guy. But right. Until you have to guard a 6'11 guy, which we saw against Minnesota, right? That's where Amos, the length and the size, gives you something that Gilmore just genetically doesn't have.
Yeah. And that's where the guy's name from Minnesota is escaping me, but he is by far their best player.
Dawson Garcia, right?
Yeah, Garcia. That's right. Dawson Garcia. Yeah. I mean, who else is going to guard that guy? Yeah, exactly. I think that these are the things about Amos that I think, just he does well.
Trent says, thanks, you guys. You guys are awesome. You guys are awesome.
For sure.
One little quibble I just want to throw out before, because it wasn't big enough to have a whole segment, but I don't want to forget about it, is once again, the end of the first half stuff is we have to clean that up. It's like the third or fourth game in a row where we could have ran that shot clock out. There's no reason to even give them another look. Once again, it just feels like we don't win that last 45 seconds. And that is more of a coaching thing, by the way. If you want to talk about what goes on players, coaches, those end of half, end of game, sidelines, out of bounds situations, those are tactical. Those are more coaching things. And when you consistently lose the last part of the half because you're not paying attention enough to the clock, where you have an opportunity to get the last shot or you don't, it seems like it's happening too much. And you can't, in tight games, you can't lose the last 45 seconds of a half.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'll couple that with also saying we're starting games really poorly. And that's also been a bit of a trend. But man, and we didn't talk about this today, but we talked about it on the Discord. Northwestern, I don't know what the hell they were doing at the end of the end of the game, not fouling when they were like they, Leach, I think missed a 3 or missed a shot, and then we were up 6 at the time. We had the ball 30 seconds. They're not even fouling. I'm like, what are you doing? Or it was a minute or something like that. But their poor end of game situations helped ours look better and helped us win that game, because they absolutely, I'm telling you, they absolutely could have got us there at the end. Like it was a little dicey there for a minute. We made our free throws, but they also played that poorly. And then the other thing I'll just add is, again, the beginning of the games, multiple games we've turned over in the first possession, multiple games we've just started off like we did today. Like we will get crushed. We will be down like we were up 19-2 a few games ago. We're going to be down 19-2. We're going to be down 23-4 if we don't fix this. And then that's a hole we can't climb out of. And that's going to happen to these better teams. Like when you play teams like Purdue that don't make mistakes, that just do everything right, Michigan State, like we have to be cleaner.
Yeah, I agree. I think they will be. I think they'll be more locked in. It felt like a game they kind of overlooked a little bit, which you hate to say. You hate to say it's okay because it's not, but those things also happen because that's what sports are, right? They're not robots, and these things happen on the road. All right. Really do appreciate everybody tuning in as always. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. Badgers win. Ultimately, the Badgers get a road game. That's what, and with the schedule coming up, this was so friggin' important today. That's the other part of this. I don't even know if we touched on that. You touched on the schedule, but you had to win this game with what's coming up. So big game for the Badgers. Go check out Lockdown Big Ten. All the biggest alignment, realignment, transfer portal stuff, craziness in the college world is happening over there. On Wisconsin. Appreciate you guys so much, and we will talk later.